Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the next module in this program. Today, we're going to be talking about why it's so important to find your niche and how basically niching down is actually going to allow you to scale your agency. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. So for today's itinerary, we're going to be going into why you need to be niching down. We're going to be going into some niche examples, things other than e-commerce. And then, of course, questions to ask yourself to find the best and most profitable niche, the qualifications of a good niche, and of course, the action steps after you finish today's module, okay? So why niche down, all right? So serving one type of client will enable you to approach every single angle of your outreach, your service delivery, and retention from a place of confidence and authority. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't tell you how often, and I can speak to this because when I started my agency, and when a lot of you start your agency, you're almost desperate for work, right? You're willing to say yes to pretty much any job that gets thrown your way. But that actually held me back a lot when I started my agency because it basically removes your ability to actually build proper systems to actually deliver your service to that client, right? Because if you're working with, e-commerce brands and you're working with info products, and then you're also working with coaches and you're doing lead gen and spot and all these different things, you're going to have to hire specialized employees and contractors for those given roles. And then before you know it, your boutique lean agency is now just in a complete disarray. So it's very, very important that you niche down and you actually work with one type of client. Okay. Like I said, so you don't want to be a jack of all trades and master of none. All right. So niching down allows you to build systems for that given type of client that are straightforward to deliver and can be replicated for the next client more easily. Now, another thing that you guys will find is if you work with one specific client and you build, undoubtedly some really good proof of concept. So you know that when you bring on a client for month one, you can almost figure out a framework and a roadmap of what you need to be doing almost every single day, every single week to get them from A to B, right? And you cannot do that when you work with multiple clients. So the only way to actually build replicatable systems and solid service delivery is actually by only working with one type of client, because it'll allow you to build systems, all right? So don't stress about narrowing down your options, all right? I can guarantee you that you'll make more money and deliver better client results by niching down your agency with a specific type of client compared to saying yes to literally everybody. Like I said, when I started off, I probably, threw away tons of opportunities and tons of money in the long term because I was just so fixated on saying yes to every type of business. I remember we were doing social media management for realtors, for website designers. We were doing paid ads for like lead generation businesses, for like flooring contractors, all these things. Like it was just a complete disarray. And it got to the point where, and I believe I communicate this in this program, like I was almost a freelancer for almost a year because I just couldn't get out of my head that saying no to business is actually how I was going to scale. Okay. So let's talk about some niche examples. All right. So of course, the big elephant in the room is everybody and their dog owns an e-commerce agency, myself included. We obviously serve e-com brands and info products. Now I know that kind of goes against what I'm talking about in this program, but you have to understand I've been running my agency now for 4.5 years at the time of filming this program. And we've basically been at the point now where we can adopt info products into our e-commerce agency just because it is a very similar type of business and we have the systems around it. Okay. So we've maximized our one department in the e-commerce space where we have media buyers managing the paid ads. We have creative directors managing the UGC content, the ad creatives, everything. We have copywriters, we have our CMO, we have our COO, we have VAs. Like we have basically a department just for e-com and we have a department for info products as well too. Okay. So again, for the newest person in the room, this is, it sounds unattainable at this point, but just know that I'm 4.5 years ahead. And so that should definitely put you at ease and also just give you something to look forward to, because when you get to that point, you may start to develop some new departments in your agency. But if you're just starting off and you're trying to scale your current department to that, that 10K level, 25K level, 50K level, 100K level, you want to focus on one niche. Okay. So everybody runs an e-com agency. All right. And as a beginner, I jump on a lot of one-on-one consultations with a lot of agency owners, and I always steer them away from e-commerce. And the reason for that is like e-commerce nowadays, and again, 2023, time I'm filming this, it's a completely different industry. Like you have to almost be willing to offer many services to an e-commerce brand compared to if you're doing like lead gen, or, if you're working with, again, some of these examples I have here, like local clothing boutiques, hotels, flooring retailers, interior designers, stuff like that. With e-commerce, you need to be doing their paid ads across many ad channels, not just Facebook ads or not just Google ads. Like, you need to be approaching things from an omnipresence point of view. You need to provide them ad creatives. You have to have control over the ad creatives and ad copy. And you should have email marketing under your control as well too, whether it's in-house or you're white labeling. And you need to be doing something to actually optimize their website, whether it's by building them specific landing pages or product pages or optimizing their whole website. It's a complete done for you service when you're working with e-commerce. It's not like the good old days in 2019 or 2020 when you could just get away with running Facebook ads for e-commerce clients. I know many of you have seen that in everybody's Instagram bio. It's like, we run Facebook ads for e-com brands. It's the same thing, okay? So that's not going to help you in this case because everyone and their dog does it. So I want to encourage you to look elsewhere at different niches, all right? So I have a few listed here. Obviously, local clothing boutiques, hotels, flooring retailers, interior designers, subcontractors. Funny enough, when I was learning my marketing skills and was working, 2 jobs, one of them was working at my dad's interior design store. They mainly specialized in flooring, so I actually got a pretty good handle and grip on working with a lot of different, flooring subcontractors to get them leads. And then of course, running my dad's agents or my dad's ads for Google and Facebook as well too, to bring more in-store traffic and get more calls on the phone for the sales reps to actually take on. So that's where I kind of started. There's also insurance companies, online fitness brands, spas and estheticians, SaaS companies. I mean, realistically, like, the list goes on. There are tons of niches. And so you need to ask yourself, what are the best niches to work with? All right. So some questions to ask yourself to really come to this realization is this industry growing? All right. You do not want to become a blockbuster ads agency where you start working with an agency you start working with a brand or an industry that it's fizzling out. Like, they're just not adapting to the current times and, they're fizzling out. Right. So you don't want to be working with those sort of industries. All right. Does this industry have buying power? Now, this kind of ties into the first one. If industries don't have buying power, typically they're a fizzling out agent. They're a fizzling out type of business. All right. So you want to work with people that have money. You don't want to work with people who are cash poor, because you in return will remain cash poor and you'll never be able to actually charge the prices that you're looking to charge. This is kind of a problem that at least I hear about from a lot of local lead gen agencies who work with, these kind of like mom and pop shops who they don't really have any intention to open up more franchises or nothing like that. And they can only handle so many booked calls or so many appointments, things like that. And that's kind of where the cap is set for a lot of local lead gen, which isn't a bad thing. It just means you can, bring on more clients, but that's sort of the cap. So you have to take these things into consideration. Okay. Now, the third thing to ask yourself is, do you actually understand this industry on a fundamental level? Okay. So when I started getting into the e-commerce space, I was actually running a few dropshipping stores myself. So I understood Shopify. I understood the back end of Shopify. I understood how to run Facebook ads and Google ads. I'm almost surprised at myself that I didn't, get into like the flooring retail space or the interior design space, because I had been doing that for, around 2 years when I was working at my dad's company. But again, what I found was, and maybe it was a blessing in disguise, is even that industry, the flooring retailers and the graphic designers, they're a nightmare client to kind of work with. And again, it's just like, they're almost like cash poor. Like, they make really good money, but they're very, very stingy when it comes to like giving money out to paying for a service. So again, blessing in disguise. But I want to really encourage you guys, you have to understand the industry that you're getting into or the niche you're getting into on a fundamental level. Do you understand their sales process? Do you understand what their customer journey looks like? Right? These are very important things that you need to understand in order to get a client results. Because if you know that, and I can use the example of a flooring retailer, if you know that typically people need to hear you and see you multiple times before they actually dial up the phone and want to chat to a sales rep, then you need to know how you can nurture that client, whether it's through paid ads, through email, through radio. Like, there's so many different things, you know what I mean? And I know I just said radio, and a lot of you are like, what the hell is this guy talking about? But even when I worked at my dad's company, like, his audience was a lot of older people that were in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. So we were doing campaigns on the radio, in the newspaper, so many different things that, like, right now, like, as a digital marketer, you're just like, that doesn't even make sense. But that's why it's really important that you need to understand who your industry is and the fundamentals of what actually drives their business forward. Okay. So without rambling on too much, we can go to the next one. So are you fully aware of the results this industry is searching for? All right. Again, are they looking for leads? Are they looking for sales? What are they looking for? Right. So you need to identify that. And that kind of ties into, again, understanding the industry on a fundamental level. And then lastly, are you confident that you can actually deliver results to your clients in this industry? Now, here's the thing. Service delivery skills can actually be taught. And the beauty of the agency space is you don't necessarily need to be the person delivering the actual service. However, you need to have a fundamental understanding of the service itself so that you can talk to your team and actually have context of what's going on and offer up ideas to actually move and progress your agency forward, right? This happens a lot of the times, especially with a lot of the clients that we work with, where we'll talk to a lot of, sometimes in the past, we'll talk to like unqualified e-commerce leads. And their biggest problem is they're trying to like outsource everything so fast that they don't actually understand like the fundamentals of their business or how to manage their Facebook ads or how to manage their Google ads. They're just trying to outsource everything so fast. So you need to do a good job of understanding the fundamentals of actually delivering that service to your ideal client. So then you can train your team and actually drive ideas forward that will progress your agency. Okay. So what makes a good niche? Just basically an overview of what we just discussed. Okay. So they have buying power. The industry is growing and adapting to current economical and technological advances. There are tons of businesses to serve in this industry. So you're not bound by, maybe your city or your country or whatever. You can basically offer up your services to basically worldwide. That's ideal. And they can be found easily on multiple channels. This is a big one. Okay. If you can only reach your clients through cold calls, you're going to have a tough time getting clients. Okay. You need to make sure that you can reach your clients on multiple channels. And lastly, they're relatively easy to get a hold of. Okay. So if you can answer every single one of these questions confidently, chances are you found a really good niche. Okay. So action steps for today. If you don't have a niche yet that you're focusing on, begin jotting down different niches that you believe you want to serve and begin conducting your research. Weigh out the pros and cons of each type of client and their industry. And if you already have a niche, I encourage you to basically ask yourself all these questions that we've gone through and just see if you can dive into even deeper of a niche. Again, there's a lot of other e-com agency owners that I know who have basically started focusing on like one sub niche within e-commerce, whether it be the beauty niche, the clothing niche, makeup, whatever it is. Okay. So you need to ask yourself, can you dive deeper into your niche? All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, follow those action steps for today. And I encourage you to jump into the Discord channel and actually communicate with the other agency owners in this community to see what niches that they're working with and what the pros and cons are of working with those niches. Okay? Utilize this community and leverage it to the best of your abilities. And I will see you guys in the next module.